Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about this cooler. It is a passive cooler from Arctic, and it is designed to cool lower power AM4 chips. Now there is an Intel version of this, up to 47 watts of heat dissipation, and it's still kind of warm, so I'm gonna put it down. Let's talk about this thing. So first, let's get this out of the way. The price point on this guy is extremely low. So you are not looking at a high-end cooling solution here. You're looking at a silent one, and it'll work well for those of you that aren't pushing your chips to the maximum. Now, I tested on a 2400G at 3.6 gigahertz, and voltage just left to auto-regulate itself. However, if your chip gets too hot with those types of settings, you can always lower voltage, you can always lower clock speeds. Again, this cooler is not designed as a high-end cooling solution. You're not gonna get a big overclock on any of the chips. It was designed with the 2200GE and the 2400GE in mind. Those are the lower TDP Ryzen chips, those APUs specifically. Now, physically, this is just a big block of metal with wider spacing on the fins than normal, and that just allows heat to escape more easily than if the fans were closed in very tightly. It's heavy. The mounting system is one of the drawbacks. It does have the ability to reorient itself because it has mounting holes for either orientation. However you want to sort of turn this thing around, you can mount it. If you want the fins to face vertically in your case, you can do that. If you want them to face sort of horizontally, you can do that. The problem here is that you have to pass these screws through the backside of the motherboard. Now, if you have a large cutout in your case, then it may not be a big deal, and you definitely will need both hands, by the way, but you can sort of hold it in place with one hand and reach around to the backside of the case and put the screws through the motherboard. However, if you don't have that cutout, you're going to have to remove your motherboard if the system is already built, so definitely keep that in mind, and don't forget to install it before you do install the motherboard, especially for those of you that don't have that cutout. So now let's talk about cooling performance, and this is sort of a mixed bag. If you're going for silence, obviously, yes, you will get a silent cooler here, but you have to make sure that there is some sort of airflow around your case, specifically through this heatsink, because if you just let it sit there, you'll just sort of see your temperatures rise and rise and rise, and it doesn't ever really level off. However, if you can get yourself a little bit of airflow over this guy, you will see pretty solid performance. You're probably going to look at higher than normal temperatures if you have a traditional heatsink. However, you're not going to cook your processor. It'll just run a little bit warmer. You're not going to overclock it or be able to overclock it using this thing. Compared to a normal heatsink, you'll get a much better overclock with an active cooling solution. But if you're going for silence, maybe just an HTPC, something to play videos on, maybe occasionally game on, this thing could actually do the trick. You will still want some sort of airflow though. And what I actually found in my case solution was to take the back exhaust fan and turn it around and make it an intake fan, which then gets some air flowing over this guy. But you don't see those fan speeds ramp up with the CPU temperature very rapidly. You don't hear the system get loud. It just puts some air over the heatsink and keeps your temperatures cool enough to avoid much throttling. That being said, if you do put this thing under a full load for a long period of time, yes, you are definitely going to see some throttling. Now, it'll keep it cool enough to continue under full load for, I don't know, 10-15 minutes here, but it eventually will get saturated with heat, and if the heat doesn't get carried away from the surrounding air, you're going to cook the processor. Again, this solution is not meant for a PC that is going to be running full bore 100% of the time. It's meant for a system that might spike in workload for a short period of time and then go back to being mostly idle while it's playing some videos or maybe even some light gaming. Like I said, in those cases, it will not cook your processor and it'll do a nice little job. Now, recommendation time. Whether you should pick this thing up is purely dependent on your use case. If you absolutely need a passive solution, you need silence in your life, maybe it is an HTPC build, I have a feeling a lot of these things will end up in those types of builds, then yeah, it'll do the trick, especially if you're just there to stream Netflix, stream YouTube, and watch some video files. Absolutely will do the trick. It will stay silent and you can just sort of put it in your case and forget about it. It may limit gaming if you game for extremely long periods of time, especially if you don't have a dedicated graphics card. Putting the GPU and CPU in these Ryzen APUs to work will generate quite a bit of heat, which will stress this thing a lot if you are gaming for a long period of time. If, however, you don't need silence and you don't mind a fan, honestly, the stock cooling solution will do just as well, if not better than this particular heatsink. But of course, those fans are considerably louder, well, because this thing is completely silent. Though it is still likely, even with a silent cooler, you'll still have a few fans in your case just for some case airflow, which is a good thing that'll actually help out this heatsink quite a bit. So if you want to buy this guy, it is $13 right now on Amazon. I'll leave a link down below, but I am curious from all of you, have you ever cooled a major component, talking a CPU or a GPU, in a computer of yours passively? Have you ever put either one of these on a CPU, or maybe you've had one of those sort of lower end cards, those graphics cards that have a passive cooler on them? Let me know which ones down below. And of course, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, comment, all those things. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware, and as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos around me from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.